So let's talk about this show. Who was the person who recommended it to us?
Me, but also someone else.
Yeah, it was Coyote the Trickster on Tumblr.
Good name.
So this is a show from, that ran from 1999 to 2000, and then again in 2002, because it was adult animation before, in between Simpsons and Family Guy, so nobody wanted it.
It was a no man's land. It was a dead zone. Nothing made it out of there.
No.
Nothing.
Yeah, it was on the WB.
Not even MTV.
It couldn't get onto MTV because MTV already had Downtown and Daria, and they're like, we don't need another one of this.
And then they, well, screw you. Then we'll make an episode. We'll make an episode horrendously mocking you and everything you stand for. And this is one of the best episodes of the show.
Definitely. So yeah, it was originally planned to be 18 episodes. Only 13 were produced. There was like this hiatus in between it being on the WB and on Adult Swim. And then it was canceled anyway.
I mean, Adult Swim still ran the shit out of it. That's where I watched it. It was great.
Yeah, they ran it on the Too Funny to Sleep late night programming block, and also on the Teletoon Unleashed block on Teletoon.
I wonder, although since I was reading up on it, I wonder if Adult Swim got like an edited version, like what was on the DVDs, because obviously being a late 90s, early 2000s adult cartoon, there was a lot of licensed music that didn't make the transition to video release. And I don't remember there being any, but also I don't remember a lot from early Adult Swim because I was a baby. So I don't remember if I actually ever saw the quote-unquote like original cut of them.
Yeah, apparently, the DVD release, at least, had to replace pretty much all the copyrighted tracks used in the show for public domain music.
Of course.
Which does make certain scenes kind of confusing, because, like, at the end of that episode we were just talking about, the best one, everybody ends by singing Everybody Hurts.
By R.E.M.
But the joke doesn't make sense because they couldn't actually play the licensed song like they did in the original release of the episode. So it's just like, everyone just starts singing that song, and you're like, okay.
I mean, like, they're still singing the
cool.
actual song. I think the Adult Swim cut was edited, because I remember them just singing it without the music. And, like, it was, even with the music, it's still completely out of nowhere. They just fucking start singing it.
No, it was because in the show they were watching, when the kid gets hit by the car and he's wheeled to the ambulance, originally in the original cut of the episode they played the licensed song.
Oh my god, then they killed it. It was a running gag. It was a callback.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, then
a lot of really cool licensed music was taken out, unfortunately. So if you happen to have a recorded copy of the original like airing of any of these episodes, you have something really special.
Mail us the VHS and we'll send you $1.
More than $1, homie.
No.
Yeah,
I said a Dalek.
It
was a Doctor Who joke, because if anybody has a copy of the lost episodes, the BBC has offered them a life-size Dalek. I don't know if anybody.
Oh, I see.
It's an elephant. It's a Legends of the Hidden Temple prize.
Yeah. Yeah. And like there were some episodes, like the Comic-Con one, where it seemed really poorly mixed. Mm-hmm. Did you get that on whatever version you were watching?
Where
like whenever there was music, it would drown out the dialogue.
I don't think so. I saw one episode that might have been like that. I don't know. Like I obviously had to watch it sporadically because I don't have it on. This made me want to buy it on DVD.
Yeah, we had to scrounge for it.
Yeah, it was this.
But it is perfectly scroungeable. If you don't have if you don't have 20 or $25, but if you do, go buy it on Amazon.
Yeah, because it's actually, the HD is definitely really worth it, because the art style for this show is pretty unique. It was designed by Lauren McMullen.
Well, I just looked up. She has directed a ton of great shit, including episodes of The Critic, King of the Hill, The Simpsons, Avatar: The Last Airbender, Newt, that canceled Pixar movie because they're like, we can't make a kids movie about these two lizard's gonna fuck. And directed...
They made Rio.
Yeah, and directed... Oh, that's also why they scrapped it. It's like, Rio came out.
Dang.
The short film Get a Horse, that Mickey Mouse throwback.
Oh.
With Get a Horse, she became the first woman to solely direct a Disney animated film, short length or otherwise.
Wow, Disney, get it together.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But yeah, so like the art,
and she's directed some pretty sick episodes of Avatar, like, here we go, Zuko Alone.
Oh, you know,
The
that old
Storm.
chestnut.
The desert.
Dang.
Lake Laugi.
Yeah, City of Walls and Secrets. Yeah, she's
So literally all
dope.
of the exclusively character development episodes.
Kind of, yeah. And in this show, her designs were really unique. It's this crazy, vibrant pop art. Like, the colors are insane. And one thing that I read about the show was that it has, like, since become one of the last animated shows to use traditional hand-painted cells.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, apparently it's very hard to reproduce because of the bright neons on the cells, like, being kind of a unique thing to capture. And though even the producers were like, it still never looked right on the screen. It was never as bright as it was on the cell as it was on screen. Like, the camera physically couldn't capture just how amazing these colors were.
Dang, that's upsetting.
That's crazy.
Because it's already really bright. And
it would be dope to, like, buy cells from this show.
I kind of
yeah,
want
I wonder how expensive they would be, considering...
It's a show no one cares about.
There wouldn't have been that many of them.
Yeah.
One more thing about McMullen, she directed one of my favorite Simpsons episodes ever, Mo Baby Blues from season 14, where Mo becomes best friends with Maggie.
Oh, that
It's
one!
one of my favorite...
Oh, that was really
It's
good.
one of my favorite episodes ever. And she directed it, so thank you, Lauren McMullen.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of... the creators of the show, Bill Oakley and Josh Weinstein, were former executive producers of The Simpsons. So there's a lot of Simpsons talent in this show.
The only cell the only cell I found for sale is, like, it was already sold, the auction had ended, but it's like, it's a night shot, so everything's dark.
And I only saw one animation fuck up in the whole thing. I saw a couple of frames where Stogie just disappeared.
Yeah. And the show also carries some kind of neat history and stuff, too, along with that. So, if you don't know what the show's about, it's very similar to MTV's Downtown. I believe the IMDb description is as follows. The misadventures of a group of desperate roommates who live in a hip neighborhood in a major city.
I mean, I guess. Technically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas Downtown was specifically about New York, particularly downtown Manhattan. This is a fictitious city called Cosmopolis and a district of that city called Mission Hill. At first I thought Mission Hill was the name of the city. I'm like, that's not the name of a city. That's the name of a neighborhood. Like Park Slope. Or wherever Spider-Man's from.
Yeah, and it's based on a mix of different places. Like, there's a little Brooklyn, there's a little Seattle, there's a little New York, there's a little Chicago. It's based on different places that these dudes knew. So it's not depicting one specific city. It's just depicting urban
It's depicting
life.
America.
It's sort of the same thing that, like, it's a bit different. Like, Hey Arnold never mentioned New York specifically, so they could kind of get away with having the freedom to chop and screw it as they wanted. While not doing that, and it's just Brooklyn. There's
two other pretty neat history milestones this show has before we get into, like, the nitty gritty, which is pretty generic stuff, but entertaining. One, it was one of the first on-screen homosexual kisses on television of any kind.
It's a good one.
What?
It's a good one. It's one of the better ones.
Yeah. Yes, only preceded by what I can see here as being, like, The Simpsons did it in 1990 with Simpson and Delilah, and the first season of Picket Fences in 1992 featured a male-on-male kiss and a female-on-female kiss, but This is one of the first times it was on TV, and one of the amazing things about it is that the whole relationship between the two characters in question, Gus and Wally, I forget that this show came out in the 90s, because it feels very, like, progressive treatment of these characters, and the 90s was not progressive when it came to
this is the only show I could think of that, like, didn't treat their homosexuality, like, exclusively as a joke.
Yeah.
No, yeah. First of all, neither of them are like your stereotypical flamboyant gay character. They're just two dudes, and they're both kind of numbskulls, and they have, comical married couple arguments. Like the jokes from them never really. There's a couple that derive from the fact that they're gay, but it's really not at the expense that they're gay.
No,
like one of my favorite ones, where in the episode where Gus had the knife in his head.
Yeah!
Because this show, like, its A plots are like, here's an A plot for a sitcom. And then its B plots are fucking bananas. There's an episode where Gus has a knife in his head the whole time and people are trying to get it out and he won't do it. So Wally, as a bit of, like, psychological warfare, welds a bunch of other shit to the knife so that he becomes more of a spectacle. And he's like, Gus, I'm sorry I did this. Let's go home. Let's take care of this. And then there's a crowd watching him because he's a man with a menorah and like a bird cage and all this shit sticking out of his head. He's like, what? You've never seen two grown men hold hands before? Like, that's the issue.
My favorite gay joke is when he goes up and gives Andy a butt massage. He just goes like, I haven't felt an ass like this since Eisenhower was president.
Kid, you should just join the Navy. 3 squares a day, and all the gay sex you could want.
And also, fucking Walt is Tom Kenny.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Tom Kenny, I have never seen Tom Kenny spread as thin, like, in as many roles in any single show. This
is, if you ever want to know his full, complete range, just watch this show. It's all there.
Yeah. And interesting enough, this was sort of the role. One of the characters he played on the show was what landed him the job of SpongeBob, and it was his character of Jimmy Briskin as the Ewok.
Yeah! I remember thinking that.
Yeah, and that was his first time using the SpongeBob voice, and it was essentially like what got...
Because he based the SpongeBob voice off of, like, imitating, like, little people talking during, like, auditions and stuff. He would listen to them, and, like, he would just... Like, he thought their voices were interesting, so he, like, worked on that cadence, and yeah.
Yeah, and so that's really... So, yeah, there's a lot of kind of neat history in this show for something kind of under the radar. But, what it's really about is... Our main characters are these two brothers, Andy and Kevin French. One's 24, on his own, living in a really nice apartment.
This is my first impression of the show, is that about 2 minutes into the first episode, Andy walks into his apartment, and I think our reaction was, what the fuck is that? That apartment, like, okay, let's say contemporary New York City, that apartment would cost minimum $10K a month.
I'd say millions.
Yeah.
Like, it would cost a lot of money.
Yeah, like, I would get probably like $250,000 a month.
Even in
insanely
Even
nice.
in 90s economy?
I don't know what the 90s economy was, and also I don't know about this made-up city. But, like, to our modern 2016 eyes, that is the nicest fucking apartment a person could ask for. That's basically a penthouse.
And they try and make it look shitty.
Yeah, and they treat it like it's this shitty, cheap-ass apartment, and I'm like...
Look at all that space!
Yeah. And that's part of it being... this show being very much a product of its time.
It's such a time capsule.
I mean,
which can be very painful for us millennials.
I mean, that was the thing in downtown, is that Alex's apartment, that was a New York City apartment that a person in their 20s could afford. Yeah. And it's still probably like $3K a month.
Probably, because it's one apartment that he just owns by himself. But yeah, so Andy, he works at a waterbed store, but he's an aspiring cartoonist, like a classic cartoonist, like gag a day kind of cartoonist. Like
single panels. Like the kind of guys who send cartoonists off to magazines.
Yeah, which...
He does.
He does do.
That's one of my favorite lines. We're going to get to Posey, but... If it makes any difference, I don't think the New Yorker publishes a lot of cartoons.
And his whole world gets turned upside down when his parents decide they're leaving Wyoming, their hometown, for some other place, and his kid brother, who's still in high school, needs to finish school, and so they decide to send him to live with him so he can finish school, not have to, whatever. And Kevin is kind of like the exact opposite of Andy, in the sense that he's a very 90s nerdlinger, he's played by...
Sorry, go on.
He's a what?
Oh, I was just gonna say he's a good boy. He's a good boy. He's a good son. He was babied all his life. They're both of these brothers. If they did the fusion dance, they turn into me.
Andy has your hair.
Yeah.
Like, if Andy grew a beard and you were bluer, then...
Because he's already a little blue.
God.
He's blue in all the art.
But
or am I blue? Who's blue?
I don't know.
I'm blue.
You're blue. That's right.
Now listen up. Here's a Okay, who does Kevin? Who's Kevin?
It was the 90s. Scott Menville.
Yeah.
Our buddy, our pal.
Is especially timely because Nina and I are currently on our 12th playthrough of Tales of Symphonia.
Yeah.
One of our favorite games ever.
And he voices the protagonist of that. He's more known as the voice of Robin from the original Teen Titans and Teen Titans Go as well.
Yeah, and then when I showed the game to friends, or when I first played, holy fuck, that's Robin! This is one of the few roles of Scott Menville where he's doing a voice at all. And because of the inherent nature of his voice, he can only go up.
Yeah. He has a very high-pitched voice. So, this very nasally character he fits very comfortably with him. Because every time you hear him as an incidental voice in any other thing,
yeah,
he's it's very obvious. He's like, oh, hey guys.
I'm Scott Menville.
I'm Scott Menville. I don't sound like I'm 12. Kevin is basically a proto Big Bang in terms of personality.
Big Bang Theory?
He's the kind of nerd that either doesn't or shouldn't exist. I always say doesn't, and then I'll go to a con, and then I'm like, oh. But for the most part,
I should stop going to these.
Yeah, that's my second thought. And this is those were my least favorite jokes, honestly, because I'm it's 2016. We're all past this. Literally everybody likes nerd stuff now. It's nerd.
I know,
doesn't,
all
nerd
the
doesn't
nerd
exist.
jokes are. Yeah, it was really okay. It's the 90s nerds.
What? You watch Star Wars?
No, there was one. My favorite goof though is in the episode where he gets really into classic cinema. It's Wally said this is the greatest sci-fi movie ever made, and they're watching 2001, and his buddies are like, what the fuck is this?
What is that black thing? What the fuck is going on?
Where are the aliens? Whose baby is that?
It's so good.
I mean, to be fair, I don't think 2001 is the greatest sci-fi movie ever made, but it's still amazing. But it's really
and it's
really
certainly
long.
what an old guard film guy would say is the greatest sci-fi movie ever made.
Yeah. So Andy's only interested in loafing around, and Kevin wants to go to Yale and be a good boy, and they're always at each other's throats in a way. Meanwhile, they're also sharing this loft. It's a loft.
It's a penthouse.
It's a penthouse loft.
With two more interesting characters who they do great stuff with, but I want more and more and more of them.
I know. First we got Jim, who's immediately one of the, as soon as he's introduced, you're like, I love him. I'm so glad he exists. He's their loft mate. He's been friends with Andy since high school. He's very tall, has this monotone voice. He's this very strange, eccentric kind of guy. And he is also the source of the loft, because, the show kind of paints itself these are struggling 90s artists trying to figure out what the slackers, whatever. But then we see that Jim actually has a real-ass job, a really, really good one. So it's okay, that's how they can afford the apartment. But he's hilarious. He has some of the best jokes.
Oh, that's his voice.
Yeah,
what?
Brian Posehn.
He's sour cream.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Yeah, this show introduced me to that guy, and like I've been following him. He crops up every now and again in cartoons, and I always recognize him because I first heard him in Mission Hill. He's great.
He's extremely.
He was
funny.
Cousin Larry in Kim Possible.
Yeah.
He was one of the businessmen in that early episode of Adventure Time. He was Choo Choo in Bob's Burgers, which is a different voice.
Yeah, he's good. I like him.
Yeah, he's hilarious. And then the other roommate is also incredibly delightful, Posey, who is this sort of like flower child hippie.
Total space case. She's my favorite character. Like she's got this weird, like, constantly like exasperated, whispery voice.
Yeah, she's voiced by Vicki Lewis.
Yeah, she's like never really equipped for any situation.
She's really funny. Like
she was Vicki Lewis was Deb and Flo in Finding Nemo.
Oh,
there you go.
Awesome.
I'm trying to see if there's anything else I recognize her in.
She was in the Wonder Woman thing. Apparently, I don't know.
She's Wonder Woman in Brave and the Bold.
Oh, cool.
Oh, dope. Gotta talk about that one.
I know, we gotta watch that show. And then the last member of our little troupe, who doesn't get as much screen time as I really wish they did, especially considering they're on, like, the logo, is Stogie.
Stogie!
Their diseased-ass dog.
I, like, when I recommended the show to you guys, I honestly forgot about Stogie, and then when I watched it, I was like, oh, this cartoon's got a dog, and with a lot of great moments, Nikki and Nina are gonna love Stogie.
My favorite Stogie moment was when Andy was home alone, sleeping on the couch, and Stogie woke him up, wanting to be fed, and he's just standing on his chest, barking incessantly, at an even beat. It's like,
like
while Andy's trying to call for
seconds.
help. Yeah.
Like, eating the couch and just, like...
coughing
up the ashtray.
He ate the entire TV remote in one gulp.
Oh, man. So, this show kind of had a rough airing history. It started on the WB alongside two other short-lived cartoons, The Oblongs and the animated adaptation of Baby Blues.
I briefly remember.
I remember both of those pretty well. I think this is the best one of the three. Oblongs is a close second.
Yeah. We should check them out.
Definitely the Oblongs.
It definitely struggled to find its footing, as the showrunners themselves said. The network was branding itself as the teenage girl network. And
like
there was
Charmed and stuff.
Yeah, Charmed and whatever.
Seventh Heaven?
Did WB air? WB didn't air Buffy, right? Was that which one aired Buffy? Was it, like,
I don't remember who aired Buffy.
WB.
And
premiered on WB. Concluded on UPN.
Yeah, so there you go.
Speaking of unrealistic living arrangements, does anybody else remember Buffy's dorm in college? Eat my dick.
And the show was almost doomed to fail from the beginning because, there's when you promote a show, there's a thing called an upfront, which is kind of like the initial preview of what the show is. And they were told by the WB that their upfront didn't matter, so they submitted a really poorly edited 2-minute long clip just to get it out of the way, because they were told it wasn't going to make a difference. But then, when the WB scheduled the presentation for the show, they failed to air anything but the really shitty upfront.
Oh my god.
Oh.
So, for a whole 7 months before the show's premiere, journalists knew nothing about the show except for the bad 2-minute upfront that was submitted, leading to nearly universally bad reviews before it even came out. And on top of that, it was aired on the death slot Friday at 8 p.m., the exact, quote, the exact time the target audience was trying to not be at home watching WB. And it was aired before a black sitcom block. Like, it just was... It was put on a hiatus after only 2 episodes, and then a full 10 months later, the show was aired again, making it to 5 before it was canceled. So it was like a shit show from day one.
Jesus.
Yeah. is a miracle. So there are 5 episodes that were never aired that were in various stages of production. There are 2 episodes that I believe have full animatics released, and the rest, their full scripts have been released. You can find them online.
I want to do it.
Yeah, I'll get into those episodes later, but we can talk about the ones that we already have first.
Yeah.
So yeah, the show was a miracle.
You know the worst part about the show? Because it's such a time capsule, and its whole thesis is so of its era, like, you can't bring it back.
No.
Like, you
No,
can't.
Doesn't make
really
any sense.
can't.
That doesn't make any sense. And then that's both the best and worst thing about it. Man.
Yeah, it was also like a little baited by the time it came back in 2002.
Yeah, man.
Although there was one my favorite episode of the show, which was the one with the Grammys and the Crisis. The fact that episode aired on July 28th of 2002, less than a full year after 9/11, is the ballsiest goddamn piece of television I've maybe ever heard of.
Yeah, like, I kept forgetting the show was made in the time it was made, because it really, even though it was so of its era, it really didn't care about a lot of things of the era as well. Like, it just kind of did what it wanted to do.
Yeah.
In a weird way. It didn't care about controversy at all. Which was very strange for its time.
Yeah, but like that episode, it's like there's some kind of global crisis going on, and we never learn what it is.
Which is kind of the point.
But the show, but the show's like really depicting the idea that the way the media handles it sucks. The way that like protesters handles this sucks. The way the politicians handle this sucks. It was a long time after 9/11 before we were willing to admit that anybody involved in it was an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, the media was being an asshole about it, our politicians were being assholes about it. And, like...
Celebrities were being assholes about it.
Yeah, like, I think 9/11 is a great source of humor, and I want to be extremely clear about what I'm saying here. What happened wasn't funny. It's a tragedy, it's not funny. But the way that it fucked this country up for the 15 years that followed is so amazing. How we all collectively lost our goddamn minds, and our entire cultural consciousness shifted to one of utter, like, paranoia and everything immediately. I think it's a really interesting thing to dissect, and it's a source of a lot of great humor.
Yeah.
My favorite joke of all time. What's the difference between a cow and 9/11? You can't milk a cow for 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, 9/11 definitely is the thing that kind of separates, to me, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to American, like, youth, it's definitely what separates 90s kids from millennials.
They wouldn't air the Tentacruel episode of Pokemon anymore.
Exactly, Tooch.
Because a
It was in
building
the
fell
goddamn
down.
theme song. I wanted to see what was up with that big-ass tentacle.
I mean, I had already seen it, but I would never see it again.
Yeah.
See, I had never seen it.
Oh,
I've still never seen it.
get on, get on that retroactively. Fucking, I don't know. I don't think I have it on VHS. I have like half of Kento on VHS.
So, just keep that in mind when we talk about the show, because you have to think in that era. You have to breathe in that era.
We were
That's the thing.
we were alive in that era, but it isn't even really for us. It's for the people who were as old as we are now back then.
Yeah, it was for Gen X.
Yeah.
We're not them.
Or Gen Y
And yet-
or whatever.
No, Gen Y was a prototype name for millennials.
Yeah.
And yet I still really felt it. Especially specifically because Andy's whole deal is he's trying to be a cartoonist. Because it is a traditional cartoonist, but they do also make a joke about, you could pitch a show to like the WB or something. He's like, oh, there's so fucking many of those, but not for long.
Yeah. Oh, there was also the joke. It's like, do you think you're MTV material? I'm not even WB material.
Yeah. Yeah. That episode was really funny.
God, that was the best episode.
So good.
And even like nobody like. I guess I haven't watched any reality TV basically ever, so I don't know if I guess all the humor still holds up. You know what? Yeah, listening to Rose Buddies, the humor in that episode still holds up.
Totally.
But
it's just so produced. All the narratives are completely fabricated.
Yeah.
And it's just
so
I feel like everybody does have that fantasy of like, I just want to get on one of those shows and just fuck everything up.
Yeah, Egoraptor did it. and it failed.
Yeah, it did. They just edited around him and then booted him episode like 2 or 3. But they still tagged Egoraptor in every single episode after that for hits. So that was cool of you guys, Sony or whoever did it. I don't know.
It was Sony.
So the rest of our cast includes mainly other neighbors in the building. We have Natalie and Carlos. They're late 20s couple, progressive couple. Natalie is a politically correct women's studies professor.
She's the teacher in recess.
Yeah, you know, she's busting animals out of testing facilities.
Which is also one of the greatest B-plots. The B-plot is that she rescued a snake from the testing facility because it was the last animal there. She's like, I guess we'll take the snake. And they're scared it's going to eat their baby.
And her husband, Carlos, he's a stay-at-home dad and artist. And they, their child is baby nameless because they had that whole, they don't want to give a gendered name to the baby because they don't want it to reflect their identity. Which was also kind of a newer thing, and that wasn't as much of a thing in the 90s as it is like now.
Yeah.
So again, that was them sort of being ahead of the game. Baby Nameless is also hilarious.
I mean, that baby doesn't give a fuck about anything or anyone. I love that baby.
I love that baby. There's Gwen, which is Annie's sort of on and off again girlfriend, who doesn't get as much airtime as originally intended, but she's there and she's cool. And then there's Kevin's friends, Toby, who's kind of the dunderhead, and George, who's kind of like the other one.
He was my favorite of them.
Yeah,
he was just kind of there, and like
he was the most relatable. He felt like the most like a real nerd kid to me.
Yeah, because he just wanted to be left alone and play his video game. I liked his dad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, his dad is great.
Toby and George were voiced by the show's creators, Weinstein and Oakley. Although Toby had another one of my favorite B-plots, which was in the 9/11 episode, where he was just slowly chased by a rabid dog for an entire day. He didn't want to spook it. The bit where he's trying to call his mom on the payphone, but he can't stop walking. Mom, shut up! I'm trying to talk to your mom.
And that was like one of the moments of my favorite background character, the man who will only eerily whisper penis repeatedly at you and then leave.
Yeah, he was the sexual harassment guy.
Which is actually a pretty quaint depiction of sexual harassment.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the exhibitionist guy, he was also voiced by Tom Kenny. So in case you want to hear Tom Kenny say stuff like that, he does do voices for not just kids' cartoons, and this is one of those projects.
Great. I love Tom Kenny so much.
And of course, the best characters we've already mentioned, Gus and Wally, are by far the most delightful, hilarious characters in this whole show. Full of delightful, hilarious people.
There was like not a better homosexual couple on TV like before or for a while since.
Yeah. They were great. Like, they're elderly gay men.
Yeah, explicitly gay.
One is like an ex-Navy guy who owns a diner. The other guy, he's like the art house movie guy with the little grandpa's cardigan sweater and the bow tie.
He's just this little foppish old man.
And they're always yelling about having stupid "we've been married for too long" arguments.
God.
And it's great.
Yeah. Because they have so much character outside of their relationship, and you never ever get that with homosexual characters. It's always like 99% like, well, what's this guy's deal? Oh, he likes dongs.
He likes taking it in the sludge.
Apparently,
because or what you see is that here are some characters that we've developed, and then like, okay, we'll make them gay later. These are characters who are introduced the first time you see them. They
violently making out in an elevator.
Yeah, they're kissing the fuck out of each other,
and then fighting about stupid married bullshit.
And
there's not even
any. Like, they don't even make an episode about, like, nobody has to learn how to be okay with them. Like, even Kevin just shows up and it's like, oh, well, okay, like, I'm aware homosexual people exist and they're human. I will just act accordingly. And he's
cool. He did get drunk and he's like, history is full of great homos.
I mean, like,
Oscar
yeah,
Wilde.
but I'm not saying I'm not saying he knows how to handle himself, but like,
yeah,
that wasn't the show.
Yeah,
that wasn't the show being shitty. That was a drunk kid being shitty. And the show immediately turns around like Gus is like, it's a very hurtful term. I'm not gonna talk to you anymore.
Yeah. Apparently Wally was based on David Niven, and Gus was based off of Broderick Crawford.
Don't know who
but
those
there's
people
also
are.
a little bit, I don't know, old-timey acty people.
Great.
There's also a little bit of Ed Wood and Tor Johnson in them as well.
Oh, of course.
Because of the best episode, one of the better episodes, the final one.
The best finale.
The best finale, where we find out that Wally once made a film, and it was essentially, it came from...
It was Plan 9.
Plan 9. And it was really, really bad, and Gus was in it, and it was hilarious.
Yeah, but both of those guys are old-timey actors from, like, the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Like, I think Niven was in Pink Panther.
Oh.
There you go.
This is a silly movie.
Yeah. There's a lot of really weird attention to detail in this show. Like, I read that, because there's commentary on every single episode. Bill and Josh, have talked a lot about making this show, and apparently they put in stupid amounts of effort to make the bus and traffic, like the bus schedules and the traffic in the city, make sense as if it was a real city.
What do you do? What is this, Zootopia? Shut up!
And I'm like...
It's the opposite of TMNT 2013, or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's where all the cars went. They went to Mission Hill.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I wonder if this is... Because they say... They mentioned some neighborhoods that this is based off of, and one of them is Williamsburg in Brooklyn. And I wonder if this really was what it was like before it got gentrified.
It's possible. I mean... It's kind of weird because there's this weird tension where they sort of talk about the neighborhood like it's not gentrified, but there's also a shit ton of yuppies living there, so I'm kind of like...
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing with the MTV thing. It's like all these yuppies are going to come in because they're going to see it on TV, but like, yeah, they're neighbors.
They're already yuppies.
Carlos and Natalie are yuppie as hell.
Yeah, and all four,
They're not...
Andy and Jim and Posey are kind of yuppies too in their own way, so it's like...
But they... A little bit. They're not really professionals.
Professional yuppies.
Well, that's what the P in yuppie stands for.
Right.
I always forget it's an acronym. It's just such a good thing to call someone.
We never find out how Posey makes money. Because we see Andy's job and we see Jim's job, but Posey we don't know.
Yeah, she sells vegetables in one episode.
I don't know. She probably fucking... She deals pot. I don't know. Where else does Jim get it?
She probably deals pot.
Man, like, I can't believe somebody left these brownies on the subway.
Yeah.
Man,
I can't believe someone left these brownies.
That was the other thing I realized about this show is that like it was in a time period when you just couldn't have a character just come out and say they smoke weed, so they just constantly danced around it with Jim. The closest they got was using the term "let's get toasted," and it's like that's fine. Moms don't know what that means.
Just like, dude, are you high? And then he just smiles
just for like 4 uninterrupted seconds. That's the best joke. And then they just keep going. That episode was also good. Like they fake having a nightclub and then blow it up.
Yeah,
that's a hilarious fantasy.
Like, Kurt, Tupac, the meter room. I was there, man.
They let the baby in. Oh man, that must be one cool baby.
I'm dating Liam Gallagher. Peter Gallagher. Gallagher, you can come in.
Yeah, so, let's see. I feel like the episodes centered around Kevin weren't always the best ones, except for the one with Eunice, which was pretty cool, because she was awesome.
And the B plot of that one was the one with the club.
The nightclub, yeah. I feel like that was the strongest Kevin-centered episode, because the Kevin archetype, like, as delightful as they can be, like, in certain situations, when it's sort of, like, about them, it's kind of, like, tiring.
Go away.
Yeah, and it's like, actually, like, that's actually the character.
Yeah,
is that kid.
I certainly hope you realize.
I certainly hope you realize, Chris.
Well, maybe if you would know that like that's his fucking catchphrase is bling blong, like a made up word he just says to himself as like a space filler.
Oh,
That was pretty funny though. The bling blong, bling blong, bling blong.
It's like Hitler called. He wants his haircut back. Oh, you know who directed an episode of this show? Michael Dante DiMartino.
Oh, snap.
Snippety snap. He directed Unemployment Part 2, which was the one where Andy finally got a job. Oh man, apparently it featured In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida in the original era.
I'm looking at, like, the wiki has, like, all the songs that were in it originally. Like, Everybody Hurts was in quite a few episodes. They're like,
a lot of funny shit. Like, choice stuff to put in a sitcom.
Do You Really Want to Hurt Me?
Dang.
9 to 5 was in Unemployment Part 2.
Of course.
Unsung by Helmet, which is a great song, and in the same episode, Cherry Pie by Warrant, which is the worst song. Or like in the Plan 9 from Mission Hill episode, they use Everybody's Talking from Midnight Cowboy, presumably during a scene where he's walking away real sad. That would have been really good.
That would have been...
I feel like these episodes would have been... There would be more punchlines, like, fucking Yakety Sax was in an episode, and Breaking the Law by Judas Priest.
I specifically remember the scene where Yakety Sax was clearly supposed to be used, so they used one of the millions of Yakety Sax-esque musics that cartoons use, and I always hate, because it's like, just fucking...
I didn't know Yakety Sax wasn't royalty-free.
No, it was from the Benny Hill Show.
Yeah, no, it's from 63. It's not old enough yet.
The first episode did have a song I recognized, though, because they made that joke about... They were talking about ska, and I was hoping they were actually going to make more jokes about ska. I love ska. Ska is the most mockable musical genre that has ever existed. But they did play the hook from Don't Let the Bastards Grind You Down by the Toasters, and I was like, oh, man, I recognize that.
Yeah.
God damn me.
The theme song is the only song that, apparently they got kept. It's a faster instrumental version of Cake's Italian Leather Sofa.
I super dig Cake.
Yeah, the opening was really...
It's good.
It's good. It's good stuff. I don't know. I mean, it's a really neat looking show. Like,
I love when everybody's dancing in the opening, and I don't know what the fuck Jim is doing, but the human body can't do it.
Weird, like, dinosaur stomp.
Yeah.
I love Jim. Nikki, I feel like I've seen you dance like that sometimes, if you're messed up enough.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I've done something like that before.
If you've ever hung out with Nikki in person, and our buddy Charlie has seen Nikki dance
At MagFest, and he's like, oh, Nikki almost accidentally cleaned my clock with a KO.
Yeah. So that's a fun thing you'll get to see if you ever meet us at MagFest.
I love all the really traditional animation and comic book stuff going on in this show.
Yeah.
All of the weird, like, dotted line eyesight gags, and, like, all the classic, like, hand wavy, like, limb smears, like the sound effects. Kevin and Andy's slap fights are some of the best animation in this show.
Yeah, they're so fluid and well done. Like, it's like, wow, like, I can't even tell what's happening because it's going too fast for the shitty video capture to
When Andy gets his unemployment check, he gyrates his hips in such a way where his crotch looks like an ass. He's just flopping, he's just swinging his hips front and back like a fucking pendulum. And I found a GIF.
He's bringing it around town.
I found a GIF and broke down the frames, and the furthest his, like, hip gyrates forward, it's just a full swinging hook, and it's not, like, he doesn't have bones.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, like,
It's like a geosynchronous orbit. Like, it's the rotation, like the moon.
Yeah, like, for adult cartoons, especially even at this time, to, like, pay attention to animation quality, especially ones that were considered, like...
art?
You know... For them to be considered art, you know?
Yeah,
like Simpsons doesn't look good.
There was some good... I mean, the first few seasons had some good stuff, and then, like, the more they started, like, kind of, like, factory cranking them out every season, like, then they just sort of hit a stride where they just didn't... Like, everybody just figured out how to draw them so well that nobody ever went off model ever again.
Yeah, it's a lot stiffer now, but like you look at, like I follow Casey Green on Twitter, and sometimes he'll just go on a tour, he watches an episode and like posts the whole thing frame by frame, and some of those frames are out of control. They did some really interesting stuff. It's not like super remarkable looking as a whole, but it's, you know, you gotta give the show some credit for some of the stuff it was doing. But yeah, no, this show definitely has a lot more visual character than The Simpsons or like a lot of other adult animation from the time.
Or even now, like, it's got a look. Like, that was the first episode we watched was really pixelated, and then we watched the second one, we're like, holy shit, this show looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, again, like nothing before it. It took forever for anything to come out like it since. Like, I feel like adult animation is just now catching up to where Mission Hill was.
Yeah, I do feel that.
And, you know, because cells are gone, like, I don't entirely decry the death of cell animation. Like, obviously, there's a look of it that you miss in digitally done stuff, but like, everything is digitally done, so you don't get the I guess, kind of organic quality of cells that this thing had.
Yeah.
Like, even though adult cartoons that we were like, you know, Rick and Morty or Bob's Burgers, they look great. They're very well animated and everything, but they don't, it's kind of like,
the look of this show
everything's still on model. Everything's heavily on model.
That's the thing.
Digital.
I'm sure there's a word for this artistic term but like, because cells allow you greater range to fuck up, and that there are, you know, these smaller fuck ups in it gives it more character.
Yeah, I feel that way. And yet it had such a graphic style.
Yeah. There was a lot of fucking good draftsmanship going on in this show. You could tell, like, you know, it's about a cartoon. It's about a cartoonist. The guys working on the show are cartoonists.
Yeah, totally.
It was kind of Garfield of them.
Yeah, it was kind of, yeah.
Yeah, like, the character design is really interesting. It all reads very well. One detail I noticed is that I kind of like how all the ladies are a little fat on the bottom.
Yeah, well, everyone's a little fat on the bottom.
Everybody is frumpy. Every single person on the show is frumpy.
Like, even the people we're supposed to read as really attractive are really frumpy.
Yeah, like
Gwen's a sack of potatoes.
Yeah, like, basically anybody Andy slept with is like attractive, but like they've got like a dumpy ass and a front dump
and like a fupa.
Yeah, they've all got like, they're like Bart Simpson fat.
Yeah.
They're shaped like one of those gourds that you don't eat. They're just foopy at the bottom and then they're skinny on top.
But like, as great as some of the jokes were, there were some that like did get kind of tiring for me, where I was just kind of like, you know, there were some things that didn't really feel like they were just kind of like doing the thing that you do when you have a show like this.
Oh yeah,
kind of like adult jokes and pop culture reference jokes and nerd jokes, and
I feel like the show had enough of its own identity to where, like, even those jokes, it still felt on brand for them, even if they weren't the funniest jokes.
Yeah, like, thankfully, like, looking back at the show, like, the stuff that I really enjoyed floats to the top, and the stuff that, like, I felt kind of tedious and tiring, I don't remember as well, so that's what you want.
As a cohesive show, it's great. Like, as a whole thing. So.
Yeah, and, you know, we've talked about some of the best episodes already.
It definitely has a lot of sitcom-y moments where it's just like, and again, a lot of them come from Kevin episodes. Yeah.
I mean, and also the air date and the production code aren't in sync, so we saw, like, when we saw it, a lot of stuff was out of order. Like, Andy Joins the PTA was the second episode produced, but it was one of the last ones to air.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So that kind of... And there is continuity in this show, actually, which was kind of neat. You know, subtle, but, like, once Andy gets the new job, he's only at the new job. You know, they were planning on doing much more continuity, like with the snake. They were planning on having the snake pet reoccur. So man. I guess I can get into the episodes that were coming down the pipeline. Each episode has two titles. One is like a safer TV one, and one is a more raunchy one. So the 5 that they had were Meditations on Career and Advertising, or Super Tool.
These are the cut ones.
These are the ones that...
Before you get into that, remember the shit that Jim brought back from Japan? The anus bar?
Yeah.
Yeah, that too, I was like, wow, Japan is weird.
And like the hot pants.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, it's like weird but cute, but like, anus bar is what really worked for me, because it's...
Anus bar was pretty funny.
How did they even translate that bad? How did they mess up?
I think my favorite Jim outfit is just a really sparkly pink t-shirt that says slutty.
Yeah, that one.
Or like his default outfit is a bowling shirt that says Mac on it. It's not his. That's an extremely subtle visual joke that's never addressed whatsoever.
So the 5 episodes. The first one is Meditations on a Career in Advertising, or Super Tool, in which Andy and Jim are assigned to create a new ad campaign for a Chef-A-Roni brand pasta, but Jim ends up taking the credit for Andy's ideas. Meanwhile, Kevin, Toby, and George buy an upscale porta potty after school thugs Griffo, Sea-Dog, and Fat Ass claim the boys' room as their own.
Did you ever name them on the show?
Griffo and Sea-Dog, but Fat Ass I'd never heard before.
Fat ass. That's fat with a PH.
Next one we got To Grandmother's House We Go, or Freaky Weekend in the Crappy Crud Wagon. Andy, Jim, Kevin, and Posey take a road trip on Memorial Day weekend, while Gus and Wally take care of Stogie.
Oh,
No!
Oh, no.
I'll never get to see Gus and Wally take care of Stogie!
That sounds like the best episode.
Plus, Karma Chameleon was going to be in it. The best song.
Mm-hmm. There's Pretty in Pink, or Crap Gets in Your Eyes. Andy and Gwen's relationship hits the skids when Andy sleeps with Jim's assistant. Also, I think there's like a B-plot where Toby has a crush on Gwen. And then Death of a Yale Man, or Premature Matriculation. Toby and George think Kevin is dying of a terminal illness after Kevin shows up to school bald, which was from trying to get rid of a hip haircut gone bad, and make his dream of going to Yale come true. But will Kevin play along with the plan? Meanwhile, Jim and Andy contend with SUV drivers.
See, that's such a simple B-plot, but I'm sure it was fucking insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. The things that Jim had that cool job, but he drove a piece of shit car.
Yeah.
Now, what did he call it?
The Crud Wagon.
Yeah. I know you hate the Crud Wagon.
And then the last one, which would have made a pretty good finale, was Bye Bye Nerdy, or I Was a Teenage Porn Star. Kevin accidentally appears in the background of a porno movie being filmed in the building, and is forced to stay with his parents after coming to visit Kevin and finding that Mission Hill is too colorful for boys of his age. But keeping Kevin around proves to be a mood killer. And basically, like, Kevin comes to the conclusion that he can't live with his parents anymore.
Oh, wow.
Like, yeah. Which would have been a great way to end the series, I think, to show, like, this growth. And it would be, like, a great companion episode to the, Happy Birthday douchebag episode.
Yeah, it was Happy Birthday Kevin or Happy Birthday Douchebag.
That one was a really good... That was probably the best Kevin episode.
Yeah.
That was a
Definitely.
really good ending. And then,
The Blues Brothers Goose! Dan Aykroyd wants nothing to do with this, and John Belushi's been dead for 15 years.
Oh, man, that's... And, like, the ass cake.
The ass cake was great!
From the gay bakery.
From the lesbian bakery.
It's the only bakery they know.
Like, I mean, I was mad at Kevin in that one, because I was like, this is a fun day.
He's not a 20-something, though.
Yeah, he was still in, like, I want a children's party. Yeah.
He just can't...
What was also great about the 9/11 episode, it actually had 2 out-of-control B-plots.
Yeah.
The second one was Posey's guided meditation.
Yeah, her fucking spirit quest. It's so good. And, like, at the end of it, like, it was Ronald McDonald?
What was the self-realization was the inner peace with Ronald McDonald, which we see for 2 frames before she snapped out of it.
Oh my god. Because there's a lot of shit happening in that episode because of the whole theme of, like, where were you when this shit was happening? Because, like, there was a timer going. So, she did her meditation. Kevin was at school. Andy was trying to hook up with this famous lady. Other characters are doing other things, It was a really dense, hilarious episode.
The EJs in school, the entertainment jockey, the education jockeys, that is such an amazing joke about the 90s. Like, the only people you'd listen to are these jack-offs on MTV. So that's the only way they could deliver education.
Brought to you by toothpaste or whatever.
Yeah, the Sway knockoff guy who they had, or maybe one of the guys who was even crappier.
And the teacher who, was always drunk and, just didn't give a shit.
That teacher. I love that teacher.
I loved it, especially, during this parent-teacher conference, and it was just like, well, we got, 15 minutes. Yeah.
I wish more parents were like you.
Oh, man. So yeah, that's Mission Hill, basically. Guys have any other things you want to add?
No, I mean, it's a show I wish we could have gotten more of, but that'll never happen again.
Yeah, no, it happened, and if it ever tries to happen again, I'll be against it, because what'll it be about?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, we're too deep in the year that we're in now and the era that we're in now to, really see if there's a show like this for the current era.
We Bear Bears?
Never mind.
That's
Definitely don't
thought.
cut that. Definitely put me on blast for that because it's We Babos.
That's a weird thought that We Bear Bears is the Mission Hill of today.
It is.
It is, though. 3 wacky roommates trying to navigate the modern world.
Yeah, in a brutally accurate depiction of modern life.
That's amazing.
It just happens to be friendly for kids.
And I've talked about that 30 times on the show and I forgot. What a dipshit.